Alright folk, so today we're going to be reviewing my 1995 Suzuki GSF250V Bandit. Oh look, some cobwebs. Shows how little I ride this thing these days because I bought the R3. The time has finally come to have a little chat about this thing. This is my first bike, so it means a lot to me. I've had an absolute blast learning to ride on this thing, and I feel like I'm now at a point where I can do a little bit of a review. Let's get this party started. Now, the reason I bought the GSF250V is as follows. That sound right there. 4 cylinders on a 250cc motorcycle. I'm obsessed with it. I'm still kind of getting used to this. The novelty of being able to just split between traffic like it doesn't exist. It's so good. Alright, before I ramble on about how good this thing sounds, we can talk about the bike. My god, look at that. And that right there is why these things are so fun. You can wind them out, you can push them to their absolute limits. Not on a public road obviously, but you can get close without really endangering yourself or anyone else. Drop a couple of gears, open her up, and you're still within the legal speed limit. Unreal. It's so fun, man. And of course, this being a 250, it's super manageable. They're small, they're light, easy to maneuver, confidence inspiring, and quite forgiving, but you don't miss out on the fun that you get from a sports bike. Obviously that straight line speed isn't there, but my god, listen to this symphony. Beautiful. You can't get that from modern 250s, although that class has now become obsolete here in Australia too. So when I say modern, I mean the 250s from about 10 years ago. The Bandit 250V actually has an exhaust valve which opens up at around 8 to 9,000 RPM, and you can really hear it. It's probably hard to hear that with all the wind noise, but yeah, that valve opens up and lets this already beautiful sounding engine scream a little bit louder and gives you that extra top end, but it's a 250, so you don't really notice the performance benefits of that all too much. So the tire on the back is bigger than it's supposed to be. It's currently got a 170 and it's supposed to be running, I believe, a 140. It's a heavy bike, I'm not gonna lie, it does feel heavy. So this bike weighs, I think, around 170, 176 wet, which is very similar to the other bikes I have. It's the same weight as pretty much the Yamaha R3, but the difference is I can feel the weight a lot more. Either way, this is a very low bike, so it is super friendly for the short rider. I can comfortably flat foot this with my knees well bent. So it handles well, it flicks. That being said, ever since I started riding a few other bikes, I think I do notice that it's not as nimble as, say, the R3 or the 250R, and looking back on it, probably has something to do with the massive rear tire we've got on the back right now. Side note though, how fucking good is riding your motorcycle at this time of the day? Look at it, it is stunning. I really don't regret getting my license. That's something you'll hear me say on every ride. This is an inline 4 250cc. It's got 4 little carbies sitting under there with what I assume are tiny little cylinders. But there is an issue with a bike like this. The Bandit 250V never really took off in these countries, so there's not a whole lot of information on them. There's not a whole lot of parts floating around. I don't know what it is. I like torturing myself because it's the same situation with the Gallon. These obviously share very similar parts, if not identical parts, with the Australian delivered Bandits, which came a bit later on. But unfortunately, like, you just don't know what's the same and what's not. You can only speculate. But I know when I bought this bike, there was an issue with the choke cable, and you know, we just ordered the choke cable for the Australian delivered Bandit, didn't fit. So we had to modify that. Yeah, it was a struggle for just a choke cable, you know. So that's a bit of a con. The flip side of owning a unique bike, which has a very small following, is that it's unique. Like, you just don't see many of these out on the roads. It's so rare now to go out for a ride and see a fellow inline 4 250cc out there. People hear this, they're surprised that this is a 250, and they're like, wow, I didn't know they could sound like that. Hell yeah, they can. It's incredible, it's glorious. If you want an inline 4 these days, a modern one, you're gonna have to go for the 650 class, like those 650Rs, and you know, that's a lot, and those are really heavy bikes. You can't really push them to the edge and maneuver them around like you can with these. Oh, what's that? I love the hills. It's so nice up here. So because it's an inline 4, it doesn't actually have a lot of bottom end at all. Not surprising, but that being said, where this thing lacks in bottom end, it makes up for in top end. This is a bike that is meant to be revved out. You know, all of its power's up top, and because of that, you get to enjoy bringing the shit out of this thing. You're meant to just drop 2 gears and just put your throttle down and go for it, you know? So back to the engine, it's incredible. I mean, this is consistent with basically all inline 4s out there. It's not specific to the Bandit, but it's buttery smooth, and that's what an inline 4 is supposed to be, right? It sounds so aggressive. It sounds like it's on the cusp of its capabilities at all times, and that might sound like a bad thing, but it's not. What it means is it's just so tightly wound, it's ready to go, you know? And this is just a really cheap eBay exhaust, which still sounds fucking incredible, as you guys heard. It's got single disc up the front. Look, I'm not a huge fan of this kind of style of naked bike. I see the appeal, and I don't hate it. I don't think it looks ugly, but compared to a fully fed sports bike, I feel like the sports bike wins every time. That being said, if you look at other bikes that are similar to this, such as the VTR 250, in my opinion, this looks so much more menacing, and that's partly to do with the riding position on this thing. So this feels like it's actually got its rear sets further back and its handlebars further forward than most of these upright naked bikes. This actually has a sportier seating position or rider triangle than my Yamaha R3 or my dad's 250R, both of which are sports bikes with clip-ons. So this is sportier, and you can kind of see that visually. It's a lot more raked forward, steeper, aggressive, looks like it's kind of ready to pounce. I mean, keep in mind I'm comparing this to commuter sports bikes. We're not talking about ZX6Rs or anything like that. I still have more fun on this than I do on the Yamaha R3, and that says a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is kind of like my second review. I'm trying to get this channel up and running, so if you could subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that. Cool. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will catch you on the next one.
You say you got them guns, but I've never seen you bang. You say you got them drugs, but I've never seen you slang.